It's important to talk about the div element and how it's used before we get on to talking about the section elements such as nav, header, footer, article, section, and so on. So I'm going to devote this video to div alone, which in the Whatwig spec is grouped together with some things we've already covered, like lists, okay? But I want to talk about div because it's generic. It's like an all-purpose tool. And I'm going to use it on this page that you may remember from assignment 1, just a simple HTML page with some headings and some links and 2 pictures. All right. So if I were to add a div to this page, what does a div do? A div is a container. A div is sort of like shrink wrap. It keeps things together and you can apply styles to it so that everything in that div will look a certain way. So it's very useful for when we get into CSS next week. You're going to see how we can make things look any way we want them to look, and we can position them anywhere we want to. So for doing those things, the div is really a kind of all-purpose tool. So what if I wanted to wrap just the top part of this page above the first photograph in a div? So I will add div, the opening tag, above the H1, and below the image and below the image caption, I will add the closing div tag. And I'll just put a space above that so it's really obvious, okay? So what we've got is a div that wraps up, oh, actually, I told you it was going to be before the photo. Okay, so I'm gonna delete that and put it above the photo. There we go. All right, so this div encloses only the heading and the first paragraph. So I will save, Command S, and I will reload. And when there's no style on the div, you don't see any difference at all. Okay, so we're going to put a little style on the div. I've got something so that I can copy and paste it, make this quick. And if you're going to apply style directly on the page, you're going to put it above the closing head tag. So I'm going to paste this in. And all I've done is apply a style that will make the background a particular color. And in this case, it's a kind of a light blue color that I talked about. Next week, we'll get into these hexadecimal codes for colors. So I'm going to save and go over to my browser and reload. And now what has my div done? My div has a color applied to it. And so that color is in the background of everything that's wrapped up in that one div. All right. So again, let me show you where the div is. It is wrapping up the H1 and the first paragraph. Now I'll move the closing div tag. I will take it out. I will Command X. And I will put it below the caption of the photo, Command V, and save, and reload. And now how much is blue? Hopefully this gives you a taste of how the div can be used to contain things. Now what if I wanted to use the div to make the whole page look a little bit more modern and attractive than this? Because I'm sure you're tired of this plain vanilla HTML by now. So let's take our div and let's see. The first one is at the top, right under the opening body tag. All right, that's good. What if I grab the closing div tag, and again, I will exit out, right? I will cut it, and I will go to the bottom of my document right before the closing body tag, and I will paste it there. Okay, so before I apply any extra styles, let's save, reload. Okay, so what you expect, background is blue. I know this doesn't look very beautiful yet, but let's apply a couple of other styles and see what happens. So I've got these here. I'm going to put a width, a margin, and a padding on it. So I'll go right in here and width, margin padding. We will be talking all about these when we get to CSS, but just so you can see what one div declaration can do with these 4 specifications in it: background, width, margin, and padding. So I will save, I will reload, and now your page begins to look more like you expect a web page to look. I know the fonts aren't beautiful, the spacing is not perfect, but now it starts to look more like, oh yeah, that's what web pages actually look like. It will also center this blue part, no matter how wide our browser window is. However, this page is not responsive yet, which you'll see if I get very narrow, you'll see that it's not going to look good on a phone, okay? But for anything from tablet size on up, this simple div has made the page, a little bit more like a regular web page. All right, now I'm going to show you one other thing that we can do with a div, and in this case we're going to have to add a class. What if I want these photographs to have a white border around them, kind of like an old-fashioned snapshot, which would be particularly suitable for this one. So let's go over here. Let's see what I've got. I've got a little photo style set up there. I will put that inside the same pair of style tags, and let's move all that over using my shift right and shift right again. All right, so I'm going to add a div around my top photo, and then I'm going to apply a class to it. The class will be this word photo, and it's going to give a background. FFF is white, and I'm going to give it a little padding, and I'm going to give it a little width. So where is my image? Right here. So I'm going to put a div, and below it I'm going to close my div, and inside the opening tag I will put class equals quote quote. That's an attribute, and the attribute will be the name of that class, and I will save and I will reload. All right, what if I want to include this caption or this attribution, photo Wikimedia Commons? What if I want to include that within the white border that I've put around this image? Not going to be very hard, because all I'll have to do is remove my closing div tag, cut, and paste it below the paragraph that holds my caption. Save, reload, and I think now you can get a little bit of a taste for how useful divs can be. And in the next video, we're going to see how more specific elements, such as header and footer, are used in the same way as a div to contain and style certain types of content.